Hi, everybody. So it's been a pretty long day and we are trying to get back on track with time. We're a little bit delayed actually in this session. So we thought of doing this change in the program just so we can try to recover some time and try to move on. So I will very briefly describe to you what I think is perhaps in many of your minds, what pioneer science is, what this program Ciência Pioneira that is sponsoring this event here is about. So I will briefly describe what it is and some of the initiatives that we're developing. So actually, many of you, the Brazilians and some of the locals here, may actually know the DOR network of hospitals, the Rede d'Or São Luís, which is a large hospital network in Brazil. And 12 years ago, the Rede d'Or gave rise to actually Georgie and his wife Fernanda. They created this, launched this institute called IDOR, the DOR Institute for Research and Education, which was originally just in Rio de Janeiro, in Botafogo, and then expanded to São Paulo, to Salvador, and has been expanding further in the past few years. It started just as a neuroscience research institute, has expanded into various areas. I would add that for those who don't know me, I'm a professor of biophysics and biochemistry at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. And over the years, I moved on to neuroscience. That's how I got to know Georgie and Fernanda. We collaborated scientifically on a few projects before. And so when they decided a year and a half ago to create this, to launch this new initiative called Pioneer Science, they then invited me to join and try to help set up this program. And that's what we've been doing during this time. So Pioneer Science is not the DOR Institute for Research and Education. It's a separate initiative that's been launched by the Moll family. It's a philanthropic initiative, so with money from the family. And the purpose is kind of threefold. So the purpose, this slide illustrates what the purposes of this initiative are: to promote the development of humankind by supporting best-in-kind science, to impact human health and welfare by developing the best possible science, cutting-edge science in Brazil, and by doing that to do, connecting Brazilian science with world science, of course, and then to explore scientific frontiers, which sometimes means funding or pursuing questions which stem from unexpected results that nature gives us. Not necessarily out of the box questions, but perhaps answers that nature provides which are unusual or unexpected, and that rather than being discarded might be pursued and developed further. So, okay. So the aims then are also sort of threefold. The first main aim is to establish scientific partnerships with leading research institutions, both in Brazil and abroad, and that will allow for training and advanced training for young and not as young scientists, to provide outstanding Brazilian researchers with the opportunity for training abroad, as I said, and then to develop and foster an environment, an ecosystem in Brazil, a research ecosystem that attracts the best minds to collaborate and to accelerate the development of world-class science in Brazil. So it is admittedly an ambitious initiative, and we are trying to develop this based on 4 pillars. So I will briefly describe these pillars, which comprise the development and establishment of strategic alliances with national and international organizations, the creation of new infrastructure for research, which are what we now call the IDOR Centers for Innovative Biomedicine. Then there will be one component of research funding, an intramural research funding, and community building efforts. So these 4 pillars will sort of allow us, hopefully, to develop the goals and the aims. So just to briefly tell you about the strategic alliances that we've been developing, some of them are still in construction. Some of them have already been established. So I will briefly mention the ones that have been established. One of them is with the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel, in Rehovot. And this is something that came up from initial contacts with Alan Chen, who is the president of the Weizmann Institute. He's a neuroscientist as well, but the program actually extends. It's not only in neuroscience, it covers different areas such as chemistry, physics, mathematics, biochemistry, biology, all with some sort of interface with the health science. The idea started a little over a year and a half ago, and there has been the signing of an agreement between the Weizmann Institute and the Pioneer Science Initiative. This was officially launched a few months ago in Sao Paulo. There is an ongoing selection procedure underway, carried by the Weizmann Institute. It is, and there has been a call for applications, and the selection is now going on. And then every year for the next 5 years, we'll launch another call, totaling about 15 fellows over the course of the next 8 years. So the idea is that these fellows will go to the Weizmann Institute, train for about 3 years, and return to Brazil to do science in Brazil, based on the training they had at the Weizmann Institute. Another strategic alliance that we've already established is with Stanford University. So there are two components of that. One of them is with the Woodside Institute, the Neuroscience Institute at Stanford. It was originally initiated by contacts with Bill Newsom, who has just stepped down as director of the Neuroscience Institute, but he's still very much engaged with the initiative. And it involves different areas. So of course, neuroscience, a project for an area in which we already have one fellow identified who will develop the project beginning next year. We have one fellow already who's working there in the area of COVID and antiviral therapeutics. And there is some talking with the so-called ChemH Institute at Stanford to develop a program in medicinal chemistry. So these are things that we are also developing with Stanford. Then there is, of course, an alliance with UCLA, which is centered around Clarice, and this has really developed from the original participation of IDOR as a co-founder of the Quantum Biology Center at UCLA. And the idea is that with this initial spark provided by this co-foundation of the Quantum Biology Center, that will use this connection to foster the training of Brazilian fellows in this area and the development of new instrumentation in quantum biology. Of course, one of the things is that we want to help build a community in this area in Brazil, and that's why we're here today and we'll be here tomorrow. So thanks, Clarice, thanks all the folks at UCLA for being supportive of this initiative to build a community in quantum biology in Brazil. Whether or not it should be named quantum biology, I think the main idea is that people, as long as people are working in this field and developing this field, it doesn't really matter if it's called quantum biology or just, biology to me, I think. And then we also have alliances, important strategic alliances with universities in Brazil, like the partnership that has been developed between IDOR with the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro and the Federal University of Minas Gerais. And we have here 3 members of this team who are at this meeting. I don't know if they're still around. I think, yeah, Aldo Jório is still here from Minas Gerais. Gabriela Lemos was here earlier, and Marcelo Franz, I think he just left a few minutes ago, I thought. Yeah, so They are all physicists. There are also colleagues from biophysics, from neuroscience working on this project. And this has to do with the whether any advances can be done in terms of understanding the fundamental limits of visual perception. And that's a project that we have nicknamed Quantum Vision, and that's being actively developed in collaboration between IDOR with the Federal University of Rio and Minas Gerais. And this was just that's a slide to illustrate the day when this optical table was actually hooked up from the street to one of the labs at IDOR. And it's now the infrastructure, the setup has been set up here already. Oops. Sorry. So this is already outdated, this picture, but the idea is that there is a small group with 2 postdocs and 1 PhD student already, led by a senior faculty team at these 2 universities who are working now on a lab setup at IDOR to develop this quantum vision project. Then, of course, there is some, as I said, some effort in terms of building infrastructure. And this is just some pictures from the new IDOR building at São Paulo. It's now being renovated, and there will be a brand new lab of about 430 square meters in São Paulo, which is going to be a multi-user lab for various projects, not only quantum biology, but all the projects that will be supported by the Pioneer Science Initiative. There has been some expansion of the lab facilities at the IDOR headquarters in Rio, and there is some planned expansion of the cell therapy facilities in Salvador, in Bahia as well. Finally, of course, nothing will work if we may have a beautiful lab and well set up, but if there's not sufficient funds to support good science, that's going to make life very difficult for the scientists working there. So one of the aspects is to build a program for intramural research funding to really support the development of science in Brazil. We all know that science funding in Brazil is very fluctuating. So there are moments when things seem to be going well and then dips. And so these valleys of death are the types of things that we would like to avoid. So provide more or less stable funding so research can move on at the fastest possible speed. And finally, one of the pillars of this initiative is to build a community, not only in quantum biology, but in all the areas that the program will support. And that includes creating a web platform, which is now being developed. It's almost ready to go now. And one of the ingredients of that platform, where we'll have a lot of information about the different programs, is a kind of a virtual map where people will be able to log in and place themselves and connect to colleagues and find someone who's working on a similar program or project in France or in the United States or anywhere. So that's a sort of a networking and collaboration platform that we would like to build. And lastly, I would just take a minute. We've seen Erwin Schrödinger's face a few times today already. So this is another picture from the 1930s or so. So we would like today to officially announce that we will launch this new award, which there is already a Schrödinger award in Austria for physics, for quantum physics. So this is the Schrödinger award in quantum biology, specifically in quantum biology. And the idea is that we'll have a call for this opening up early next year. And then the idea is that we will try to support collaboration and training by young scientists who want to work in this field, whether postdocs or grad students who might want to go spend a few months, for example, abroad at some lab working on topics related to quantum biology, as well as the development perhaps of instrumentation and these types of things. So that's one thing that we're announcing the award today, and we'll probably open for applications and nominations sometime in the beginning of next year.